and welcome to Trusty Chords, the podcast which aims to celebrate music and those that create it. For the majority of the last 20 years, one of the most explosive performers on the music scene has been Frank Carter. Unassuming with his short stature and red hair, Frank burst onto the scene as a member of Gallows back in 2005, blowing away everyone with his intense stage presence and mesmerisingly powerful voice. After 6 years with Gallows, Frank left to form Pure Love, an alternative rock band that slightly eased off the pedal of intensity that we'd previously seen. After a few years there, Frank partnered with Heights guitarist Dean Richardson to form yet another new band, this time called Frank Carter The Rattlesnakes. From the release of their first album, Blossom, in 2015, Frank Carter The Rattlesnakes have been dishing out some truly amazing music. Whether it's pushing into those hardcore roots, easing into different areas, or just trying new things, there's no denying that the creative flame burns bright for both Frank and Dean on and off the stage. This year they released the album Dark Rainbow, and it's certainly one you should spend some time with. In fact, that's what a lot of fans did when Frank Carter The Rattlesnakes visited Australia back in April for a long-awaited local tour. It's now that I lift the veil on the world of podcasting and tell you that this week's episode was recorded back in April, the day before the band kicked off their first Aussie tour in 4 years. I'd actually chatted to Frank back in 2019, but this was the first time I'd spoken to him in person, and the first time I'd spoken to Dean, so it was a lovely chance to get up close and personal with them both for an hour. At the time, I was also entirely unaware that Frank was not too far off announcing a special set of gigs, effectively fronting the Sex Pistols, when he performs Nevermind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, with Paul Cook, Glenn Matlock and Steve Jones this August. Had I known that, I might have thrown in a few more questions about English punk of the 70s, and by more, I mean some. A small caveat ahead of this interview, however, this was the first episode I'd recorded in person, and there were a few technical issues with microphones not working, so the quality does suffer from time to time. However, if you can bear with it sounding a bit tinny or room ambience seeping through from time to time, you'll surely benefit in the long run. Similarly, you'll also occasionally hear Elliot Russell in the background typing on his laptop, which makes sense given it was his hotel room we were recording from. Additionally, I hadn't actually realised Elliot's role extended beyond the logistical side of things, so you can imagine my surprise when I saw him on stage at 170 Russell the next night, performing with the band. Anyway, I strongly urge you to check out Frank Carter The Rattlesnakes' latest album Dark Rainbow, and once you're done giving that a spin, brave the technical issues, have a listen to our chat, and I'll see you at the end of the episode for some general housekeeping. Frank Carter and Dean Richardson, thank you for joining the Trusty Chords podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Now, for those who don't recognise your names, can you give me a brief introduction into who you are and why you're here?
Why are we here? It's a bit deep for a
podcast. Get nice and philosophical.
Into the existential analysis.
We are Frank Carter The Rattlesnakes, a band from London and surrounding areas, and we're in Australia to tour.
It's literally that, yeah. That's why we're here.
Yeah. So, you sort of touched on it there, but you guys are obviously about to kick off the Australian tour, so I'd like to acknowledge you're probably a little bit jet lagged, right?
We got in last night about 11 p.m. So we landed at the hotel 1:30 a.m. I woke up 10 minutes ago. Yeah. So I am
nice and fresh.
I'm feeling great.
I'm on an hour and 10. 2 coffees. So.
2 coffees, nice.
We know who the better answers are coming from, don't we?
No, you don't, trust me.
So you guys have just flown in from the UK, I'm guessing. You guys haven't had any recent gigs in the immediate or recent.
Yeah. We've done a UK and a European tour this year. Yeah. But then we've been home for a month?
Yeah, 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah.
So the whole jet lag, it's not really the whole sort of rock star lifestyle that it was played up to be as the youngsters, wasn't it? It was all sort of like cocaine and private jets. But
yeah, I don't do cocaine anymore.
I don't do private jets anymore.
Yeah. It's a hard habit to kick, isn't it?
People often think I'm on private jets.
Do they?
People think we're on first class, not private jets.
Oh god!
And I'm always having to be like, and they laugh it off like I'm lying when I go, no, first class for us. Or yeah, and they're like, yeah.
I was in a row of 4 seats with a family of 4. That was me. So I was like basically the nanny. Yeah. And this baby just kept grabbing me. But they do the baby strength thing where they're like, so I've just got little bruises all over my legs.
When I started playing with him and interacting with him 12 hours in, I could sort of tell you were a little bit don't need this kid to be more.
No, it was fine. That would take it away. But I tried to engage like early on, made a mistake, and then realised I'm now looking after you for 10 hours.
Yeah.
So, and I should say, Frank, I'm not sure if you remember, we have actually spoken before, just as a 15-minute phoner. So if you don't, if you don't remember, I'm not offended. But Dean, I haven't chatted to you before, so it's lovely to have the chance to speak to you both today. So what I'd love to do to start this podcast off is sort of look back at the early days a little bit. So I'll ask both of you, do you have any memory of when music first really resonated with you both? Like, these questions are obviously for both of you, but Frank, would you like to go first?
I remember, I've talked about this before, I'm sure, but I remember my dad was actually like an engineer for a big computing firm. But he, in his spare time, loved music, and so he used to DJ when he was younger. That's how he met my mum. But they just had a wealth of music in the house. So I remember early on listening to things like Madness and like really like and Genesis and Dire Straits and just like anything that was big poppy in the 80s, was in my house playing at some point. So those are my earliest memories, probably dancing around the house with my brothers to Madness. That's when I knew how music could be a connector, so that's like my earliest memories of that. So
yeah, kind of similar. My dad, again, sort of my sort of introduction to it. Two things I remember really is, so he played in bands, so most of my weekends were kind of sleeping in the kind of back of a pub where he was performing and stuff. So I was around live music really early, which I sort of must have gone in somewhere. But then also I really remember he at every moment had its music. So like if it was a Sunday morning, there was a certain vibe. If he was doing the ironing on a Sunday night, it was a different vibe. If it was Friday night and he was supposed to cook, like whatever he was doing, he would apply music to it. And that's really gone in for me. Like if I'm going to do something, my second thought is like, what's the music that fits this?
Yeah. Such a nice like moment.
Yeah, and I could find songs and be like, he's doing this, he's doing that, and he still does it as well. But I've definitely inherited that, but I really like that because I like the sort of what complements, what improves and adds to this moment. And I'm not sure there's many where it's silence for me. Very few.
So does it make it hard to actually get things done then if you spend the entire time looking for the perfect soundtrack?
It's just basically procrastination.
We still have a playlist, a Dad's Drive playlist, which is just, and that is, I didn't realise, but for my brothers, that was their big first moment. It's our road trips down to Cornwall for family holidays would come with a pre-cut tape that my dad had made, and that they've now put it into a playlist that we just put on long drives. It's quite nice. Yeah.
So, like, I'm guessing that I should say, were you both the sort of folks to sort of listen to music and say, "Hey, I want to do that when I grow up"? Was there a specific sort of moment when that sort of came about for you both?
For me, it was quite late, really. First thing, I remember writing a song when I was like 12. Really young, with my snuck into my dad's room, played his guitar. I remember singing a little bit and playing it. So I think writing came way before I imagined like performing it. And it was more when I was sort of maybe 15, 16, where I was like, I'm gonna be in a band. Just decided that after going to festivals.
What was that first song?
First song, I can tell you the lyrics.
Can you really?
Yeah, for some reason I can't remember lyrics like anything, barely our own lyrics, and I can't remember our chords to half our songs, but it was jet propelled, head into space, clouds crashing through my face, and I love it, my convertible rocket car.
Wow, that is
I have no idea why. I've remembered this forever. I mean, it's essentially a little poem, but I was playing like, it would have been like, honestly, please do, but it was literally, there would have been like 3 of the most basic chords and me warbling that. So I remember that, but the bit where I'm like, I'm going to do band was a festival, Reading Festival. I just remember thinking, what would it look like up there, not here? And that was the seed of it, I guess. What about you?
Nice. I never thought I would be.
Yeah, right.
I always thought I'd be a tattooer. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to draw. I used to sing when I was really, really young. I was in a choir and stuff, and then I lost my voice and just thought that was it. It's gone. And then I had bands when I was really, like, again, 12 through to 16ish. But I just it kind of like started and then stopped, and then I got into tattooing, and I just thought that was it. My time in music was over, you know. So like when I joined Gallows, I started Gallows with Lags. That kind of was an accident, you know. I actually quit Gallows before they released an album. Like, for quite a while. Like I had an ultimatum from my boss at the tattoo shop. It was like, you need to pick one. You know, you're coming in here all fucked up and you can't move because you've headbanged too hard and shit. Like, and that was it.
You've seen him recently and said, didn't pick one. It's going quite well.
I did pick one. I quit and I stayed there, and then you know, 2 months later they called me and like, we got a record deal, but they want you. So I said to him, that's when I said, I'll nip and do this. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
So that was actually my next question, because obviously that was when folks first started to like learn who you were, was through Gallows. So obviously there's a strong focus on hardcore punk in the band sound. So what was the goal when that band first sort of began? Because I mean, how did you sort of go from listening to Madness as a young one to getting into you know, a bit of the Black Flag sort of style of hardcore punk?
We've always loved punk rock. Like I think punk rock is nice because it's for the underdogs, isn't it? Like you just it becomes a safe space when there aren't really any in the world. So we've naturally, for me, when you know, I grew up 5'7", like ginger kid. There's only one world of music that's going to be safe for me, you know. And so I just found myself really comfortable in there. And then when I found like the straight edge lifestyle, that made a lot of sense to me. Gave me a bit of a home. So I was straight edge for 12 years while I was playing punk rock and while I was in Gallows and all of that. So yeah, I don't know. I think it was really, really natural for me. It's also just you know, it made the energy made sense as well. Like, and that was something that I couldn't say for every other bit of music. Like technically, I'm not like a proficient musician. I'm not a gifted player. You know, it takes me. I can sit with an instrument for 2 years and have like a basic grasp of it at the end of that, you know. I can't even get by some days. Like, but it's tough for me. I find it really, really difficult.
But hardcore punk, that is, if you can display emotion and give it your all, you are then received like you've just shredded a solo.
Exactly.
Because it is that version, and so that's the same reason I ended up in that same place. I'm not someone that enjoyed, like my dad liked people like Joe Satriani and guitarists like that, and I was like, I'm not enjoying this. But anyone that could go out and just like leave it all out there, all that stuff, and for whatever reason at a certain age, like in my mid-teens, that was like, to me, just so absorbing. And I think that's the same thing, like that's where we bonded really. I think performing. Absolutely. And that first show in Sang Blue was like, oh, we can both do this thing where, which maybe I don't know, I have a different view of what that is now, but at the time that was the reason I ended up doing it.
I think we both have a really different view of how that was helpful and problematic in our lives, you know, when we were growing up. But that comes after, you know, 35 plus years of work really, and insight and looking at, you know, having the time and the patience and the compassion towards yourself to look at your youth and the journey, you know. But
I still have a positive view of that part of music that will open its arms and say like, okay, this is where you can come and hang out. We're all the same here, and like it's a nice place that exists. We obviously needed it.
Yeah.
So obviously, Dean, you sort of mentioned your own music journey because you rose to fame as part of Heights. So what was the Heights story? How did things begin there, and how did things unfold?
So over those years? Rose to fame.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
those
dizzying heights you reached.
I mean, we toured Australia and stuff, so we toured a lot. So that's the main thing. But what was the question? How did we?
I guess how did things sort of unfold for you? You know, what was the Heights story?
The Heights story was just I think I always see it sort of, we were very much just stuck outside of this sort of thing called the music industry. So, and there's something really beautiful about that as well, now that I've been in it for a while as well. Like we were always under this idea that someone's going to come along and sweep us up and kind of take us on this journey, but instead we just toured sort of relentlessly, like first in a van, and then like in a van we'd get a hotel, like, but then that was it. And we played like all over Europe, Russia, Australia, Asia. Like we did so much touring considering we had no backing. no funding. So that's kind of the main thing I think about it, is just how amazing it was that we saw so much of the world and what I learned. And then the sort of DIY mentality that I learned all came from that, really, which then obviously you had a similar thing. And so when we came together, it was like, let's make our own artwork, let's make our own merch, let's make our own videos. And that's not everyone's introduction to making music. It's often that there's a team that do all that. And so yeah, I feel very fond of what I learned from it, but it felt I don't know, it just felt very outsider, I guess, both in the music and the attempt to make a career out of it. It's just, but it led me here, so it did work in a way. But
it's fair. I almost feel as though you're actually reading my questions, because my next question was, what did you both learn from your time in those bands? Like, you sort of give me an example.
Yeah, for me, it was definitely DIY mentality. You can achieve a lot if you just all say, we're going to do this thing. Yeah. How about you? You were more in the industry. The industry wanted you guys a lot more, whether you guys wanted the industry or not.
Chew us up and spat us out.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how amazing that is that you did that, and that probably that adds a lot of context to the conversation we've had multiple times about when that was ending for you and how close it was to, and you're probably on the cusp of making it its own thing without anybody. When you guys broke up,
it was actually like a bit of a business when it ended. But
one more of those massive world tours at a loss or at a break even, and you're cemented as this band exists whether we like it or not, and then the industry get involved anyways. Really, it's such a frustrating,
sort of burnt ourselves out proving that you can kind of do it independently. While She Sleeps were always around us at the same time doing a similar thing, and have sort of gone on to prove that that kind of model of like you can kind of be self-sufficient.
It's a lot of graft though. It's constant energy.
10 years of doing what they were doing together now.
What was the question?
It was pretty much, what did you learn sort of from your time in a band like that? Because I mean, obviously there would have been a lot of touring with yourself, like a lot of recording, and just, I mean, even just being within the industry, there's a lot of expectation and everything. How to manage all of that must have been
I think you learn a lot about the industry, because that you essentially taught me mostly what I knew between you and then what I've learned since I've been in this band. So when we came together, you knew a lot about the big things, record labels, booking agents, how to tour with big acts. You taught me a lot. We'd get a tour with like a big act and you'd be like, this is what we need to do, we need to be really good at this. So you had a lot of experience about the actual...
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
It taught me loads, because I come into it like, I know loads about some things, but hadn't sort of dealt with like, what's a record deal, like real basics, but they're not, because lots of people don't get near them, but you have a lot of experience in that part of the world.
Yeah, unfortunately that all comes from just lots of mistakes. So
trial and error.
But it's expensive error.
Trial and error with record deals is a dangerous game, isn't it?
Definitely not a pool you want to be whacking around in, is it?
No. When we talk about experience, like I obviously have a ton of it from those times, and I learned loads. I think the most important thing I learned, which I still talk to myself about every day, is just enjoying it along the way. I didn't for many years. Like I was so concerned it was going to disappear. I had like quite severe imposter syndrome and was always sort of waiting to be found out, and that just has never happened. And I just think that I could have had like a much more enjoyable life if I had enjoyed it. So now I'm really committed to this, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, no matter what's on the schedule, just to wake up and try my best to enjoy all of it as it goes. And life's been great. Life's been really good.
Obviously that's great to hear.
It's
great to hear after that trial and error. You're sort of at a point where you can sort of say, actually, I do believe in myself with this. I haven't got that imposter syndrome as much, because you're able to back yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to find that sort of self, because that comes from, confidence in yourself is one thing, but a true confidence is also like about knowing that you might fail sometimes. It's not just this blind like it's different from arrogance. Like it's now it's more just a kindness to myself. Like I just am like, you're gonna just do your best, so just do your best, and it's like you're gonna be fine.
You treat yourself with some pure love, which goes into my next question. So so after you're in like pure love, it was around 2014 that both that and Heights wrapped up. So how did you guys actually get together and form the band we see today?
Well, Pure Love's at the centre of that because we had, I think we'd met via tattooing, but either during or I think before, like right as Pure Love was.
Right before, yeah.
Yeah, because I came to the last Gallows stuff. So we'd kind of gone from tattooing, and Frank had kind of helped me figure out the end of. I was sort of saying to you, I think I'm going to wrap this band up and move on. And so you were really kind of just gone through that, but bigger with Gallows. So we kind of became friends then. And then I did a little bit of design stuff with you and Pure Love, website stuff.
Yeah.
And then we started writing together, which is obviously then the real sort of match that started this whole thing for Pure Love. But then that didn't kind of make sense with... You were kind of too far down the route. You basically had an album.
With Jimmy, it was too far gone. We basically had written the whole thing. So.
And I hadn't quite finished Heights. Like we had a whole world tour booked, the final tour. So it just didn't really line up. And then I just sort of, was just friends whilst the Pure Love thing kind of happened. So Heights had already, so the timings were odd because Heights had already all agreed to kind of call it a day. But then we had this tour booked a year later to sort of wrap it up. So by the time Pure Love had finished, we were both in the same position.
Yeah.
But Pure Love's very much a big part of the whole.
Yeah, and then we got together like probably a year after that had ended for both of us. Just to write some music.
Because we both had our full year out of music at the same time.
Yeah.
Which, considering how our careers obviously came together at different times, for the first time, is that right? For you as well?
Yeah, and that's usually
and I was fully not making music or in music for a year.
So we got together and started writing together. Like Dean had some music and I had a few little bits, and we wanted to just write ballads for other people. And to try, because I still at that point had this tenuous publishing deal. So I was like, well, I have a way in so we can start seeding songs into people. So. And I thought maybe that was it. I've done two performance bands. Maybe my career in music is writing for other people, and I still believe that. I still think that's what I want to do in the future. But
we pitched some songs for Little Mix, for Will Young.
Yeah, so weird. I feel weird. Yeah,
that was fun.
Hits, all massive hits, obviously. But now we just repurpose.
Just imagine where their career would have been.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you guys got together for Frank Carter The Rattlesnakes, was there a specific mission statement that you guys were sort of trying to? Was there anything you were really trying to achieve with this project, apart from just making a bit of noise?
What I wanted was to have a very successful DIY band. That's what I wanted to do, and I really wanted it to be like one cut, just to go for both of us to go and just put one big lump out of the industry at the time. And just basically say like, you can do this on your own. And that is what we did, really. We wrote the first record, we recorded it straight away. It was all self-funded. I booked the tour, and we went on and did the tour. Half the tour sold out. I think the whole tour sold out.
Tour sold out at the end, yes.
And then we played Reading at the end of that.
All before we had a booking agent or a manager or any of that and stuff. So.
And and what that did was created like a real momentum behind what was happening, because people realised that we still meant it. They saw the energy from Gallows, but with slightly different songs. Like the songs were a bit harder than Pure Love, so it made sense to people. They were like, oh, they can still do this. Like everyone that was missing Dean from Heights now. Like saw him with me and was just like, these two should have always been on stage together. Like
it made sense, didn't it?
Yeah, and what we did was we built a band around us with musicians that played as hard as we did, and if it wasn't about the performance, what they were was like an incredibly proficient musician. Do you know what I mean? Like Mitch doesn't explode on stage.
It was when Mitch and Gareth kind of merged. Then because for a while we were just four of us, and Mitch used to say like, it feels like this is the ingredients. It's like whatever me and you do, and then whatever they're doing, and essentially there is a difference in that. They're playing as hard as we're performing. And when you can kind of get that split right, whereas we've all seen bands that are one or the other, and there's audiences for that, and there's people that love to watch. But I'm always a little bit underwhelmed when a band that's amazing is not performing. But equally, just out and out performance kind of punk rock can feel like
Can sound like
feels pretty
like
good.
You're falling down
so
the
I
stairs,
think we were quite aware that was sort of the ingredient that felt for us. That's the bit where this made sense to us and was like, this is the balance for us.
Because I remember the first time I actually heard that first album, Blossom, which was about 3 a.m. when I was at a house party back in my hometown of Adelaide, and this friend of mine was singing to her future husband, singing "I Hate You" so lovingly, and I just thought, who the hell is this? And I'm like, oh, it's the bloke from Gallows. At the time, I wasn't aware of Heights, so otherwise I would have said the bloke from Gallows and the bloke from Heights. But when I first listened to that album, it I was really sort of taken aback, because after listening to a bit of Pure Love, it sort of felt as though the direction wouldn't sort of be as hard as it was, So it sort of felt like, it's not necessarily like you're looking back, but it sort of felt like you're returning to a bit of that Gallows sound. Like, was there a specific plan for that album at all?
It's never. A lot of people have said like, oh, you go forward, you go backwards, but it's just we're always going forwards. It's just I just never really understand that. Like when you go softer, people seem to think that once something is hard and then it's soft, it no longer has the potential to be hard again. And I'm just like, we're just fucking water. We're just like, we can be boiling hot, we can be ice, we can be fucking.
Well, we've talked about this because you take about like Nirvana, and like the soft stuff was sometimes the way like more intense than but they did all those things and stuff. So it's always interesting that I don't know what it was like back then for them, or whether people, and like that era of music where like hard heavy music had the ballad side and stuff, whereas it feels like people want it to be one thing or the other a lot now, but
people like understanding things. It's really simple. Like the world is mental and really confusing and a hard place to be at the best of times. When you then start looking at your entertainment, what you do to relax, people want to understand it. It's not like and that makes sense to me, I get it, but the problem I have is that they're constantly trying to understand me as if it's final, like same way with you. Like people want you to be a certain thing forever, so that they know Dean Richardson goes here. And then when we're constantly like, even with each other, we move each other around.
Yeah. I remember understanding with our music on the second album when we started to be less kind of, I mean, I Hate You is a good example as well though. Like the fact that fits on the first record is because it's intense. Like whatever it is about, I like atmospheric and then usually quite intense music. Even if it's a piano ballad, for whatever reason, I like it to feel quite intense. Like I'm looking for my music, whether I listen to it or make it, to really press on my emotions.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, that's the bit. So I think intensity, I remember we talked about this a lot on Modern Ruin, like, can we be like that? We're like, it's still intense. And then that's, for me, solved the whole question of like, how can this make sense? And I think it'd be useful if other people sort of tried to look beyond heavy or loud and quiet and soft and hard, and just sort of, what else is it about this music that makes them sound like they do?
Because even just yesterday, like before this chat, I was listening through the discography and sort of just seeing how it all sort of sounds in one sort of continuous package. And obviously there are years between albums. It's not like I can say one album to the next. But you do sort of see that sort of shift in sound where it sort of goes from heavy, and then it even goes like with Sticky, it sort of goes a little bit heavier again.
Yeah.
So it's very malleable, isn't it? And it's all just sort of, I guess, how the mood strikes you at the time, isn't it?
The interesting thing is you can pull any of those songs from any record and put them in a playlist and they work. Like that's the core is still the same, and that is that you're right about intensity, but I think it's like an emotional intensity as well. Like that's it's always
Sunbright Garden
about
happening to me.
It's
intense.
devastating. Yeah.
But like to me that makes sense why you can be that band and write Fangs.
Yeah.
Because they're both sort of like, I don't know.
So like, do you often have people actually sort of saying, like, where's the anger gone?
All the time, every day, every single day. I had someone the other day on my Instagram say, like, I like this, but where like I want screaming, and I just wrote back to him and said, so go and fucking scream. Like, why do you need me to do it for you?
Yeah.
The thing is, it's
I
also just
understand
it's an argument as old as time, isn't it? Like
whatever
a band has sort of changed from their first record, whether they've got way better, way worse, whatever you think of it, there's still going to be a group of people saying, why don't you sound like, basically, why don't you sound like the thing that soundtracked an important part of my life?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not really about, It's like, why don't you sound like my breakup album?
Yeah, and my argument is, why are you not growing at the same rate as me? Like we have changed constantly since 2000. You know, catch up.
Well, it's actually quite funny because only a few days ago I interviewed someone for this podcast, and on their second album was very popular. It was a totally different style change. So the very first song on that album is literally called "I Like Your Old Stuff Better Than Your New Stuff." So all the fans were sort of like getting ready to complain. Then beat me to the punch. But you know, you are right though, because like people tend to sort of crystallize an album in like a moment in their life, and if it doesn't, if it doesn't sort of match their expectations as it goes on, they start thinking, well, you've changed, but they don't think about why haven't I changed, which I don't know if that says more about them than it does about the artist.
It says a lot about the world, and that's the reality of it all. It's like we're all out here. It's greedy, it's selfish. It's like there's community is sort of out the window now. It's about like the singularity, and then obviously off the back of the last 4-5 years we've had of isolation, compounded by the world, like. Everybody is thinking about themselves more than ever. So, we do the same. We're guilty of it as well, but we just put it into our music, and then that at least is for everybody. So, there's a lot of there's always a lot of questioning, but I think for us, it's if I also worried about why, if I really sat and worried about why everybody's not growing, I wouldn't fucking do any growing anyway. So
we stagnate, wouldn't you?
Exactly. Yeah, we just crack on.
So, and you guys also did release the new album Dark Rainbow back in January. So that one is easily one of my favourites of the year. And I'm not saying that just because I'm chatting to you. It is a sort of thing. Every time I listen to an album, I give it a little rating out of 10, and that one rated quite highly for me. But so obviously been a little bit of a while since it came out. But for latecomers who might be listening to this podcast, what does an album like that say about who the group are in 2024?
This is the first time we've talked about it after a little bit of space from it, which is always really interesting. Because when you're happy with a record and you release it, you usually feel like it's a really authentic kind of like, this is who we are now as far as we know it, and then obviously time goes on. So even this little bit of time, I'm like, first question I asked myself was like, does it still feel like a true, like if we move beyond it? Yeah, I'm still feeling pretty like it's a good representation of me as a musician at this time in my. Which is good going. Normally, even a month, you can start to be like, I would have changed this, would have done that, or I want to be something else, or where are you out of it?
I think what's interesting is the record we wrote was, obviously, it's a big change sonically in the songwriting. Yeah, so the songs are like crafted with such care in a way that there's a lot of time that's gone into them, whereas. In the past, we were really quick. It was really spontaneous and it was very reactive. We'd write the song, it was done, we'd put it out. So there wasn't much room for consideration in that. And that was a really beautiful thing, right? What you have with these songs then is this idea that we really, really thought about them. We wanted to see how that would change their life in the world or whatever. And for me, we're coming into this tour now, which is very different from the tours that we've just done. We were just selling out 3,000 cap rooms in the UK and Europe. And now we're here, and then we're going to be in America playing bars, And I honestly, I just think that we've written the perfect record for all of those spaces. So what it says about us as a band in 2024 is that we're relaxed, and we're in a really, really good place to make loads of music. That's what I think. I think we've found the record that defines the Rattlesnake sound. It's the one that you can take any song from any record and put it with Dark Rainbow and it all makes sense. That can't always be said for our others. I know I said that you can put them in a playlist, but some can't sit next to each other without a real clash. Almost anything can go. You got I Hate You, right? That can sit next to American Spirit. That could be on the same record. The only difference is lyrically, the violence in the words, But sonically, those two songs are they're honky tonk bar songs, they're blues bar songs. So it's
now that you mention it,
yeah. Well, it's a lot of the time, it's lyrically is what people are confronted with. so that's what determines whether a song is aggressive or not. But we often like take all of our songs, strip them down, play them acoustically, and they all just sound really beautiful, you know, even the fucking really violent ones.
So now that you've sort of, I guess, found, I mean, I don't want to sort of say, now that you've found a formula that works, is this sort of how you sort of plan to sort of approach things in the future? Or, I mean, or is it sort of going to be like a whatever works, works?
I think we're going to take loads of time off.
Well, I think it's well earned, isn't it?
I think at this point, yeah, like, I think we need like I think at some point we need a break because of just what you were saying the other day. It's what, almost 9 years, 5 albums. That is a pace, you know. That is.
It's a pretty hefty strike rate.
Yeah, and I find myself especially kind of almost looking for more each record, and so after you've got all these, like I remember with this, I just got really like bugged out by the fact this was going to break 50 songs for Rattlesnakes. Just really. But it's because it's like it does just get harder for each one of them to be doing something new, and when I say new, I mean just within our own progression. Like that seems to be something I learned on this one, that it's really important for me that we don't just put another record out that is just another record to kind of go back on tour. Like there's plenty of bands I grew up with where I enjoyed that they sounded the same for their whole career. Like I wanted that one thing from them, they did that. But as a creator, I seem to have the opposite thing. So when you say formula, like, no, immediately, we were talking about this the other day about how we might make the next one, and I'm trying to think of like a completely new process that's different. So, and I think that's because of that, like trying to find something new, learn something, challenge, grow. So yeah, I don't think it's formula, but maybe something in attitude. Like, I don't know, the way we were relaxed in a different way, and we were patient, which we haven't always been with our own making process. We've kind of been racing to the end on some of the old records, which again I see the beauty in as well, because that sort of that frantic feeling can get in the record. The calmness and stuff like that might carry on, but how we make it, we'll see how we feel when we make it.
Yeah, I often talk about how the studio is like trying to catch lightning in a bottle, you know, and I think that in the past has been the impetus to releasing records so quickly. It's like we got the it's there, and then you put it out. And I think now what we're doing is, just because you catch it doesn't mean you should have. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So now it's like we've got this maturity in us to say, all right, we did it. Is this like a lightning bolt that should exist in the world? Do you know what I mean? And some of that stuff needs to be free. Like it's, you know. So now it's like a case of sort of releasing more into the wild than we keep, and that's like a really beautiful thing, because I didn't realize like how much you grow as a person when you start doing that. I really was so concerned that I would never catch another one. That I just wanted to put them all out. Whereas now I'm like, it's the songs that sort of don't exist in the world, they still exist for us, you know. And that's when you then get this autonomy around being a musician, being a creator, being a songwriter, being an artist. And that's always been the most special thing for me, is when we finish a record and I have it, Dean has it, the band have it, and no one else in the world has it. And I'm just cruising around listening to a record that I know will be released worldwide. Sonically it's like perfect, and no one else can hear it. Like that's so it's been trying to find like that excitement again, and keeping more for ourselves, just to see how it feels. It's funny, we give the record to journalists, and quite often we get a review on it the next day, or they want to interview us about it the next day, or they haven't even listened to it, right? And I'm like, you should have it, and then you should talk to us in a month.
Sit with it for a while.
Yeah, you need to listen to it for a month, blast it. It needs to be your favourite thing, or you need to fucking hate it, but you need to tell me why. Like, what use is it if you've just heard it and you're like, you haven't even finished it yet? Like, it's like... Well,
I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm glad we're chatting now, because the album was out in January, and it's now, April. So I'm able to say, all right, we've had a few months in between it, you know? I've had time to listen to it. You guys have had time to have it in the rear view now. It's obviously great to sort of see that you guys are at a point, I guess, in a trajectory of the band that you're feeling good with everything, you're making music that you really enjoy as well.
Yeah.
Which is obviously conducive to good times all around.
Absolutely, yeah.
So on that sort of topic before about, you know, the evolution and excitement and everything, in the world of tenuous links, I'm going to get onto the next section of the podcast, which is called Trusty Chords, which is where the podcast gets its name. So folks who know music theory knows a standard chord is 1, 3, and 5. So I'm looking at I should have had this already. I should be able to explain this much better by now. I've been doing this enough. So this little section looks at the one artist that has impacted you the most, 3 albums and 5 songs. So it's a little bit hard to sort of kill your darlings and get to the.
I thought the fact that the third question had 5 on it was a ludicrous jump, and now you explain the concept.
I'm bringing the hard ones, that's for sure. So I guess to kick off, you know, start with you, Dean. You know, who is the one artist that has inspired you the most, whether it be personally, creatively, or just one that you love too much?
I think with some of those questions, I have to not think too hard. So the first sort of artist that came to mind was Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. And I think partly it's also quite integral to mine and Frank's one of the first artists that we really bonded over. And I don't even know if at the time I knew anyone else that knew of the artist. So it was a real like, wait, there's someone else out there that might be like me. And I think you introduced me to I can't remember which record now, but basically it was a big part of how we bonded in those early things. But mostly why then is the like refusal to fit into anything, and yet the sort of creative success that's come from that. Like, I don't know, you've got Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Who's the artist either side of them on a one theme bill?
Yeah.
I don't even. The next artist I think of is just someone else who's creatively incredible, rather than like if you said the same for I don't know, punk rock, or you could pick a different genre. You can find 3 acts that sound the same. So saying about their refusal to be, what was that? There's that phrase, one of one, not number one, and then eventually they were actually number one as well.
I like that.
But yeah, the one of one, not number one. To me, they epitomise that, and I think no matter what success they would have had, they would have done the same thing. And I hopefully not just buying into that, but in my mind, that's what they've done. And I think there's probably a lot of artists that don't get the same success they've had as a result. But yeah, very inspiring to me always. Even if they go routes I'm not into, I'm like, okay, I'm into it because I know you're going to go somewhere else. And
yeah, I mean, even if you don't like the destination, you can enjoy the drive, can't you?
It's the glory of the
always
ride.
about the journey. Yeah, it's always about the journey. So hang on, I have
one
to pick
artist.
One artist, yeah.
And then the next one's 3 albums
5 songs.
from different people.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right. I thought it was you wanted
no, it's
5
not just
songs and 3 albums from one person.
No,
I was
no.
like, this is
That's why I put Nick Cave.
way too much.
800 song
Yeah.
catalogue.
One artist that's had a profound impact on me. Jeff Buckley.
Yeah.
I think I was trying to save him for songs and records, but I think now where I'm at, just wanting to be a better singer, I think I just measure it all up against Jeff. He's just got the best voice ever. I think.
Pretty untouchable, isn't he?
Unfortunately, yeah.
So you picked a low bar there to try and
Yeah, well,
one of the greatest of all time.
one of one,
Yeah,
not
there you go.
number one. Yeah. But yeah, it's not what's nice about picking that sort of bar is from where I've come from. Do you know what I mean? To even be put in sort of performances in that I'm proud of now, like musically, it's just really nice. Like back in the day, it was all spit and violence. Like now I listen to some of the stuff that we do and I'm really proud of it. But Jeff is just, obviously a very tragic tale, and but arguably one of the greatest songwriters who will ever exist, like on earth. And I think we're all just really lucky to be around. I still read his lyrics with like the I'm trying to find the right words now. I'm talking about lyrics, but they're captivating on a level that I can't explain, and I still find new things in them every day.
Yeah.
And I listen to his records like every week, and I still am always just like they're arresting, yeah. Like they stop you in your tracks when you're really involved in them and you're reading them. Like they are arresting, and that is something that on an emotional level I know is just so difficult to achieve. And I read it, it's like reading the Bible, you know. It's like it feels like it's part of a story that's bigger than time itself, and I think that's what we want to be as an artist, you know. You want to be able to affect someone's life, you know. Now Jeff died many years ago, and yet his songs are still stopping me in my tracks in the middle of the street sometimes, and I'm like, how the fuck have you done that? Like, how have you put that together? And like, what are you talking about? And you know, that can derail me for hours sometimes, which is annoying. But it's also beautiful. I'd rather be derailed and like trying to understand like the majesty of Jeff Buckley than doing whatever the fuck it was I was doing, you know. It's obviously more important than wherever I was going. So Jeff was definitely the number one for me.
So we're looking at 3 albums now. So 3 albums that have impacted you the most. What do you think?
I went with Mike Oldfield's Tuba Bells.
Wow.
Just because I can remember listening to it on like a tour bus in full with us as recently as a few years ago, to sneaking it on in bed when I was like really young, to like when I went away to make my first record in Heights. It turned out that he grew up behind the fence from the studio we were in, and I just couldn't believe it. So it's just an album that's been there the whole time, and mostly when you listen to it, like, it's ludicrous. Like, once I realised you can make music that can do that, I'm like, there is no rules. Like, it's like sort of it's just, I guess for me, it's sort of first entrance into anything considered prog, which didn't go to the depths of prog at all for me. But yeah, I put that down, and then I actually did Abattoir Blues, which is the record that most affected me by Nick Cave. For similar reasons of just being like, if music sounds this is so exciting to me. And the last one I sort of copped out was Blossom.
Oh, really?
Because it's like, I think I read the question has impacted you, and just like, it's completely changed the course of my entire life in ways that nothing else in my music. Like, if you think of an album, there was my life before Blossom and after, and it's too big a moment to have not been part of the reason my life's changed. So I went for those 3.
It's actually quite, I guess, sweet and poetic in a way.
Which I thought I was going to get a toe right.
I mean, you're right, because you talk about impact. I mean, you can't really sort of go past something. I mean, that's actually something no artists I've spoken to so far have sort of said, but it's quite...
When I asked the question, I was thinking about Orchestra of Wolves, because that's the same for me, but I'm like,
well, now you just
just derivative.
Unbelievable.
I mean, that's the worst insult you could give me. Derivative.
I love it. Yeah. No, that's lovely.
3 albums.
3 albums. Can I have like a live record?
By all means.
There's like obviously Pink Floyd live at Pompeii, which is just it's complicated because I love the video, the film that they made around that. It's just that had such a profound impact on me when I saw it the first time. Also because of all the behind the scenes where they're making Dark Side of the Moon. I go back, I still watch that. I still watch it all the time. It's just like a masterclass in people sort of exploring music on another level, you know, and then performing it on another level as well. You see people that are like in tune with the universe in a different way. The fact that they're like there at one point, like playing in the middle of the night, and an Afghan hound is joining in, and it's like, and it makes sense. It's just a testament to who they are, not only as people but as musicians. So I'll take that. I'll take White Pony by Deftones, which is probably one of the greatest rock records of all time.
That's definitely one of the very few 10 out of 10s for me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So I have those 2, and then the third one. I was trying to think about what I don't want to cop out and say. I would say Grace by Jeff Buckley because of what it means to me, but for some reason I'm also thinking like Swimming by Mac Miller. It's just like I listen to that I still listen to that every month for sure. I just think, I don't know what it is about those songs, but there's a comfort in those songs that is like profoundly sad.
Well, I mean, you're sort of on the same sort of Jeff Buckley track there, are you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great talent cut short.
Yeah, absolutely. But in his time, made an enormity, like enormous amount of records and songs that are still helping me today. So yeah, let's go with Mac.
And now we're on to the tough one. If the first two weren't tough enough, 5 songs you can always turn to. Whether it be for comfort, for excitement, or anything at all. Your 5 trusty songs.
Should we go one each?
God, yeah.
I'll start. A song called Time Lapse by Ludovico Einaudi, or Einaudi. It's just like, for people that know him, kind of contemporary classical artist. Always like kind of piano music, but specifically that one song, it's probably been 10 years of putting it on whenever I want something that sounds really kind of sparse and quiet and peaceful. So I think it's more the sustain, like I don't even think it's his best song or even my favourite like classical. I don't listen to a lot of classical music, but of the stuff I do, but for whatever reason that song is just sustained. So it's kind of the first song I thought of when I thought of like songs I would kind of return to without fail, without questioning, well, am I in the mood for that? So yeah, straight on.
I mean, that sort of goes into what you're saying before about music with emotion. That's great. He's got so many great songs, and he's just such a powerful. I mean, I say powerful, but it
is powerful, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But
the song is so quiet. But...
Yeah, because he knows how to make use of the space and sort of really make an impact.
Yeah,
so I think impactful is probably better than powerful. But
yeah, but I think when I thought of the trust, like I tried to think of songs like without real any effort can I return to them, because sometimes there is that like almost emotional baggage that comes with it of like, well, I listened to it during that time and maybe that's what you want, but there's a little group of songs where I'm like, no matter what's going on in my life, and some of it's been hectic and they've been there, those songs, but they're my songs that go with me, not necessarily that go with a moment. So like that Time Lapse song, it's not one moment, it's just whenever I need that mood, that song. They get a lot less emotional and deep for me as the list goes on. It's like, what's your first one?
Pink and White by Frank Ocean. I just love that song. I could listen to that all the time. I do listen to that often. Lyrically it's brilliant. Sonically, like it did things on a really simple level. It sounds like bedroom, which I've always loved. And it sounds like someone that's just really involved in their process, which obviously like we've come to learn now that he really is. But there's something about that record, that song in particular, that just it's pure art, and I've just always been impressed by that, by people that can live within the genres that we have these days and make a song like that is such a hit, but it's pure art. And I just think that people don't often recognize that. Like I think they don't even question it because they just think it's a good song. And what I'm saying is like, you're looking at like, kind of the new Jean-Michel Basquiat, but of the bedroom or pop world, and you don't know it. Like, well, we will when they go, but it's
the sort of thing where people will gladly look at the painting, but they won't look at the brushstrokes that went into it.
Sure.
And sort of what makes it up.
Yeah.
If I'm not being a bit too pretentious.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
What about yourself, Dean?
Next one for me is a song called "Hope There's Someone" by Anthony and the Johnsons.
It's a beautiful song.
So beautiful. And two things I thought about is, it feels like there's time. I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but there's a point in which my music interest diverged from anyone I know to just being my own little kind of weird collection. So like until Anthony and the Johnsons, I was into stuff that I at least had some friends that were into, but no one got on board with Anthony Johnson. So I would play it to all the people I would listen to music with, and they'd all be like, not really seeing it. Recently I listened to it and think it might actually be lyrics that mean, because that song's got a very simple message of just like obviously just hoping there's someone that you can kind of be with and spend time with, and it's kind of heartbreaking when you listen to it with the lyrics, which isn't my first listen. I'm more kind of zoomed out than that, but lately I've been listening to lyrics more, and that song, I listened to the lyrics and I was like, God, I've listened to this a lot, and this maybe that.
The vocals are just absolutely intoxicating, aren't they? Because when you first listen to it, it sounds like nothing else.
Yeah, their voice is again, it's completely unique, and I can understand why some people wouldn't like it, but for me, it just jumped out of the speakers. It's like, I want to listen to more of this, and I think that record in general was a contender for like 3 albums, but didn't go for it in the end. But the song "Home is Someone,"
beautiful song.
Here It Comes Again by the Amazing Snakeheads. If you've not heard the Amazing Snakeheads, then you need to listen to them. The record is called Amphetamine Ballads, but the song is Here It Comes Again. This has been in our pre-show playlist since we were a band, maybe.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really move.
It's one of those few songs that every Rattlesnake loves it.
Yeah.
We have similar music tastes, but we've all love that song.
It makes sense. The Rattlesnakes like Snakeheads.
It really does. Yeah, it's kind of where the name came from as well. They're just like, and they took it from like an old mafia gang. But yeah, Del Barkley is again one of the greatest songwriters of our generation for sure. Another tragic tale. But what they did with music was, for me, define atmosphere. You know, they make like swampy punk rock from Glasgow that just is so atmospheric. You think you're in like some sort of bastard western, like that just doesn't make any sense. You know, it's as if they were shooting a western in Scotland. Like, it's just so moody. You can hear the rain. Like, you feel like someone's just told you, it's just round that corner, and you just feel like if you go around there, you're gonna get stabbed. You know, like the record is an amazing journey, but that song is just like, I'm not sure there's a better like get you pumped up to do bad shit song. Like, I really don't feel like there is. So yeah, that'd be the next one for me. Have you got a third song? I've got a couple now.
I got a third song, completely different tip. Runner by Kevin Abstract.
Nice.
This is kind of opposite tangent. It's a specific moment in my life. It's the American tour we did, the long one. And for whatever reason, it just I listened to it so much on that thing that it's just sort of deeply embedded. And yeah, just put it on since, really. So it's kind of an easy, and it's more like a sort of, I want to clear my brain rather than I want to like get into it. So for that, whatever that song does, just puts me in a bit more of a kind of like calmer, sort of more peaceful state to do whatever I want to do. What are you going for next?
The Day I Tried to Live by Soundgarden, which is one of the best vocal performances ever. Some of the saddest lyrics ever, and I've listened to that song more times than I'd like to realise. But yeah, it's just, that's had a profound impact on me. Like,
we're really getting stuck into the tragic tales today, aren't we?
I mean, we're just a bunch of sad boys, really.
I'm looking at this like,
I've got tears tattooed on my face. Do you know what I mean?
I got two more that are more.
Are they still alive?
Yes, yeah, they're also alive, and they're less sad.
Okay, cool.
But it went from sad to less sad. I think that says a lot about. And this is sort of in order. My next one is Work It by Marie Davidson, but the Soulwax remix.
Great.
Because I felt like there's a big part of my... I also enjoy music for pure escapism, not just for like deep dives on your psyche. So for me, that's what electronic music mostly forms. Not all of it, like some of it's more serious, but for that song, if I'm gonna try to get into an upbeat mood, I can put that on.
This is great because that leads perfectly into mine, which is Edamame by Rich Brian and Bibi No Money. Like that's to me is what I put on, like when I go to my studio to tattoo, that's the first song I put on without fail. Like 6 a.m, whack that on, I'm just ready for my day. Like I'm just grooving about the place, cleaning up.
Palette cleanse, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's great. It's just a beautiful, it's a fun song. And like that has got me through my morning commute on the tube in London so many times. Like, put that on and you can't have a bad time. Like, it's fine.
I mean, it's. I was gonna say, what's the word? It's pretty catchy, but it goes beyond catchy. It's just so sort of arresting. You know,
yeah, they have like, Baby No Money is just, again, I mean, I think we can talk about tragic tales, but I think we're just talking about people that just write good music, write good songs, and like, that kid is just untouchable. Rich Brian as well, I think has got like, when you look at him, he just looks like the sweetest young Asian kid, like, and then you listen to him, he's got like the deepest voice, and it's like, fuck, like, I'm jealous of that at times. Like, yeah, it's I've listened to his album The Sailor was amazing. Like, it was really, that like changed things for me. I don't know why, I just listened to that constantly. And that I think in a playlist next to work is a good vibe. What's your last one?
Last one I actually didn't plan, but I'm gonna go with Colours by Black Pumas, which I think again is a lyrical thing for me. Like, it's a beautiful song, but the lyrics are essentially just about like all the beautiful colours if you just walk out into the world. And it's like, I don't know, there's something slightly about the lyrics and what it was saying that are along a theme that I try to think about life in the way that song is singing, and it's sort of I guess just simplified quite a complex thing into like simple pleasures and joys. But yeah, again, heard that song and haven't stopped. It's funny when you realise which songs you play. I probably play that once a week at least, and there can be weeks where I play every morning, like it. And I don't also keep up with Black Pumas that much. I'm not like, so it's that song more than the artist, and I listen to their records, but unlike a Nick Cave where I'm very much interested in everything they're doing, it's that song. So that's my last one.
I'm surprised there was no. Can we do honourable mentions? I know I've got one more song, but like,
I'm surprised that the absence is in mine.
Yeah, I'm surprised by the absence of Young Fathers in yours.
Do you know what? Just because it's too recent.
Yeah,
if you had asked my newest favourite artist, it's number one. My favourite album of the last 2 years, they are like and they were the first four.
Yeah.
But this felt like the whole concept to me felt like stuff you return to without fail. What's been there for you the long? I don't know.
There's a sense of veneration involved, isn't there?
If I carry on the way I am, a lot of these things would have had Young Fathers in them in 5 years from now or 10 years from now, because they make music I don't understand still. But I just couldn't quite find a place for them. I nearly put them in songs, but it's still quite recent for me.
My last song is Your Song by Elton John.
See, I was waiting for Elton John. I was like, if he doesn't put Elton John in,
that's for me is like lyrically, it's just, I sing it to my daughter all the time. She doesn't get it, obviously. She's just like, that's nice. But as a father, it's just a
wild song, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just it's a lyrically perfect. I don't think there's another song that touches it in its sincerity, and it's like, it's just a beautiful song. That would be my last one. And then my honourable mention would be Daniel Rosenfeld, who is was the composer and sound designer and soundscape for the game Minecraft, because that is just something that, like, I yesterday I put it on. I just put the loading screen on my Switch and put my headphones in and fell asleep on the plane, because it's like pure peace in music. Like,
do you want to put it on Spotify next time and make sure he gets a little bit of money for that? Like 12 hours of listening.
Interestingly, though, they've sold the game. I don't know the details properly, but they have been trying to get him to sell the rights to his part of it.
So he does have rights to his songs.
No, in the end, he said he's not going to take them, but they're not to be sold. He gave them to the people. He just told it that it's for everyone. So it's like, and which has caused like a major problem, I think. Yeah. Because obviously they can't really do, so they've started changing it. But yeah, it was just what I play that game with my daughter all the time, and something that was always really like profound for me was just how beautiful it was, how peaceful it is as a game, and how it makes her feel and me feel. And even when it's like spooky, even when it's scary, you know you're in trouble, you don't feel like, there's not like the panic urge to be like, I don't feel actually like terrified. I'm like, it's still quite nice.
I mean, video game music is something a lot of people completely, I guess, disregard or look over. But when it's done well, it's the sort of thing you don't really recognise.
Yeah, just
which is a bit of a shame.
Oh yeah, Tony Hawk's Pro Skaters. I wouldn't be in this podcast without that.
I mean, if we want to talk about my 5 favourite songs, then pull the seat.
But it's interesting, they just won, Baldur's Gate just won a BAFTA.
Okay.
Like, for the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, one of those things, like, he was up there crying his eyes out, like, completely overwhelmed. You know, I think just shocked to be there, but just sort of saying, I'm so glad that we're now being involved in this conversation.
Yeah, because I think of it as more like compilation music, like Tony Hawk's and then FIFA and stuff. And Fortnite's sort of become that now, the compilation-y exposure stuff. But then there is the whole world that's more like soundtrack in movies now. That's where they're doing the same job as that, and that's it's an incredible space. But I think in a basic level, it's if you're doing something else and the music has jumped out, got to be pretty good music. Yeah. Especially if you're engaged like gaming. The whole point is you're fully engaged. If you're then walking away going, wait, what was that tune? That song is a good song.
Well, I mean, I'm sure we could talk about gaming music all day. But I feel like I should wrap up by saying, Frank Carter and Dean Richardson, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, and also for being part of the Trusty Chords podcast.
Thanks for having us. What are your trusty chords, Dean?
Trusty actual chords? Yeah. I don't even know. Don't laugh over
when I learned what a C was, and I just kept just like kicking it in the studio. It's like the only. What about a C?
Thank you for listening to Trusty Chords. If you listened to this episode and enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you were able to take a few minutes to like, follow, share, and review this podcast on your preferred platform of choice. As always, there's no obligation to do so, but I'm never going to complain if you did. If you're someone who needs more social media in your life, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word, while Twitter is Trusty Chords Pod. There's also a blog for this podcast on my own website, which is tylerjenke.com. That's TYLERJENKE/Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. Over there, you can find little capsules for each episode every week, along with the trusty chords chosen by each artist and the accompanying playlist. You can also find a link to the Buy Me a Coffee platform where you can throw me a few dollars to keep this podcast running if you feel so inclined. There's no obligation here either, but any support is forever appreciated. As usual, thanks to everyone who continues to listen, message, or just support this podcast in any way. I'm forever grateful to hear from you all each week. Lastly, I need to thank Frank Carter and Dean Richardson for spending time with me in Melbourne for the podcast. I also need to express my gratitude to Elliot Russell for inviting us into his hotel room for the recording, and Caitlin from Crowd Favourite for helping organise this chat as well. But once again, thank you all kindly for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week as I continue to celebrate music and those that create it.